Very special edition of Ship Chasing today. Ben Gretch makes his return. It has been a little while since we've had the pleasure of doing a show. So we're going to catch up, talk some NFL free agency, some rookie draft stuff, some NFL draft stuff, and see what's up in the world of Gretch. I'm Pete with Pat. This is Ship Chasing. Let's do it. Pat Fryer Helmo.
This is why I'm hot.
Anita Handjob.
Fix your sight. Jamar. Alpha play chase. Are you kidding me? Kadarius Toney?
You can't handle the heat.
It looks like we're finally fifth boys. You're
right. All right. Making his triumphant return. Ben, I see you haven't made any huge changes to your office. It's still the same old Ben here, just like old times.
I'm pretty much not spending much time in my office these days, which has been kind of nice.
That is kind of nice.
What have you been up to out of the office?
I think that might be new, that light braid. I did that with my daughter. That's Simba right there. You see Simba
nice.
there?
Oh, yeah.
And then that's an elephant on a ball. You can't really see the elephant as well.
Well, it is a rule that anything in your background inevitably has to become a prop on a stream. You know, that's the check on done. So I'm trying to think how those get integrated.
Go turn them on, yeah.
I'm Simba.
What have you been doing? Have you been golfing?
I have not golfed yet this year. I've been
not hanging out with Davis, I guess.
Is he golfing?
He only hangs out with when he golfs. That's what we learned on ADP chasing.
I mean, Seattle weather isn't even good enough to golf really yet, but I definitely will be doing that. But I had started working out. I had mentioned it a couple times, just kind of slipped it in there. But I know, Pete, you had picked it up before I ended up dipping out. I started P90X, which is like 20 years old now. But I had done that years ago, and the longest I'd ever made it was 40 days. I finished that Saturday, 90th day. Today's my 88th day in that program, so that's cool. I've been working out a ton. And then I started coaching my daughter's softball team. They needed extra coaches, and we've had practices every day this week. So I was telling you, you're like, this will be a fun stream because I have been more detached from fantasy football these last couple months than I have in years. I won't have much to offer other than just hanging out and dicking around with you guys. But I'm spending my days laboring over softball rosters. That's what I'm doing instead of NFL rosters.
How are the advanced softball stats?
We're not quite too advanced yet. We're doing the beginning softball stats for sure.
That makes me, because I remember when Pat and I did the Fantasyland about Chris Wessling, and they had their, around the NFL podcast or softball league. And I remember talking to Dan Hanses, and he did a lot of like reordering the lineup. There was a lot of care that went into it. That's the thing that I think would be hard to balance coaching your kid's team, where you're so excited, you want them to succeed, but then you're also having to reel in your own competitive impulses. I bet that can be hard.
It is. It definitely is. And helping her. So my daughter decided like a year ago she wanted to start softball, but she's 13. Like, she had never really played. The pandemic hit when she was in third grade. She hasn't played team sports since like second grade. She was playing soccer growing up when she was younger, and she did gymnastics and all that, but she didn't pick that back up after the pandemic. She got into like band in middle school and everything, but she decided she wanted to play sport. She was kicking around some ideas. She finally, like volleyball, whatever, finally decided like a year ago she wanted to play softball. And I grew up, baseball was, if not my second sport, was like my first sport with football. I played more organized baseball than my parents didn't want me to play a bunch of organized football. Like I think is true for a lot of kids. It's like a little bit more of a safety risk. I played organized baseball my whole life and like got a lot of really good coaching. My brother ended up playing in college. Like, so I know a lot of the drills and all the stuff that you need to know. So when she told me that, I took her out, got her a mitt the next day, like started working with her all last year. She played for her middle school team last fall, and now she's in a little league team this spring. So she's still learning. And sometimes like the feedback I get is I'm maybe a little bit too hard on her, because I'm like, we got to get through. But baseball is a very technical sport. There's a lot of stuff, catching, throwing, hitting, all of these things. There's a lot of ways you can mess up, a lot of ways you got to learn the different technical stuff, a lot of drills you can do. And I'm just like, kind of pushing her a lot because I want to get her up to speed at age 13 to where she has like a foundation to do all that stuff. So then she can learn along with her teammates and stuff. She's doing really, really well at catching up, like starting something late. But there's a lot of just like what you were talking about, I'm coaching a 13-year-old girl who doesn't have a lot of experience with team sports where, you know, I mean, a lot of the stuff of like just dealing with, oh, I didn't have a great practice or I made some mistakes or, you know, coach liked me at this position and then doesn't think I'm good enough to play that position anymore. Now I feel like, you know, certain things, a lot of that stuff gets worked out when you're younger in team sports. But for her, it's, you know, she's, you know, doing that a little later. And all the girls are that age. It's a different age to be going through all this stuff. So anyway, there's a lot of those challenges with coaching for sure. There's a lot of parenting coach.
Baseball and softball are tough too because there's like not that many reps that you get. You know, like you might get like 3 at bats. You know, there's like one big play you have a chance to make. So it's kind of
That's
sort
exactly
of
right.
Yeah, you got to like seize the opportunities, and then it can be frustrating if you like mess up because that represents like a big part of your overall sample of play.
That's
yeah,
right.
and it requires like more patience, right? Because there is like the procedural element to baseball. It's like your turn. This is how it works. Whereas soccer, like the little kids, it's just like a giant ball. You know, everyone just like hovering around. It's like, oh, you run around, you have some fun. It's like baseball. No, there's a decorum in order to this for this to work out. But
for sure.
We talked about it on the Swolecast the other day, and both Davis and I were saying how excited we are in the future to be able to coach little kids sports, because Kitchen's been coaching a lot with his stuff, basketball and soccer as well. And it does seem like a ton of fun.
It's super fun. And I didn't know if I was ever really going to get that chance. I think I will with the second one as well as she gets more and more into it. She's mostly just done soccer. She wants to start doing basketball. She's 9 at this point, and she's done, I don't know, she did like ballet really early on and stuff, some other stuff. But I mean, it's a really different. I grew up in, like, I had older brothers, grew up in a very male dominated household, and we played every sport. We played every sport in the yard during the day. We played every sport organized during the different seasons. I'm sure you guys did too. Like the 90s in America, like you played baseball. Like for us, it was baseball, basketball, soccer, basically all my same school friends on all the different teams, you know, and it was the 3 different seasons. My kids were not super into sports. Like they could have been, but I never really pushed them into it, especially my older daughter. And my wife was, you know, she played soccer growing up, but she was more like, she was a cheerleader in high school. She's not like super, super athletic. She can probably hear me right now. She's probably going to beat me up.
Careful.
But they kind of took after her more. There she is. Her family's very musically oriented.
The light bright just hits gradually.
Right. She's very musically oriented, and then her family is very musically oriented, and my kids kind of took after that a little bit more. And anyway, I didn't know if I was ever going to get the chance to like coach, so it's all kind of happened really fast. And I didn't know, like, I wasn't like necessarily supposed to coach this team. That's the other thing, is like I'm coaching a whole team, helping coach. I'm like an assistant coach. But coaching a whole team of 13-year-old girls, some of whom have played softball for 10 years and are really good. And I haven't done any of these. I talked about like I had really good coaching when I was a kid, but I haven't done any of this or coached or paid attention to even baseball for 20 years. I mean, I paid attention to it at the major league level and stuff, but I haven't thought about how you teach kids these things. And then softball is slightly different in some ways, very similar in a lot of ways. But when it comes to, you know, a lot of the things that have come up, I'm like, I don't even know if I could coach you because you know better than me. Like some of these kids that have been doing it for 10 years, like they're well coached at this point. Like I kind of probably could give you a pointer, but probably not, you know? So anyway, the whole thing it's been a fun experience. It's just been like about a month so far, but they haven't started games, but it's been super fun.
So are you feeling refreshed having been more unplugged with football than it sounds like you've ever been?
Yes. Yeah, that's an easy yes. It's great. I mean, I've been definitely missing you guys. Anytime I'm still doing some of the stuff with Sean, but we've taken some weeks off as well. So I've been completely detached for certain weeks, which has been nice. That was one of the things I mentioned when I stepped away from doing this, was just the regular schedule of it. I just kind of wanted to clear things up as much as I could and be available for my kids. I mean, like even my younger daughter, I mean, she's 9. She just last week, like officially probably learned to ride her bike. Like again, Seattle, we have bad rain and everything, bad weather, and she's struggled with it over the last couple summers. She's been super good at scootering, and then she will ride her bike with training wheels, but she's wanted to work on it again this spring. And it's like, okay, if you tell me you want to work on riding your bike, we're going to go work on it. Cause she has felt behind. She's 9 and she's like, I want to get better at it. But now she's cruised. She wants to go ride her bike every day now. Right. So we go on bike rides. Like she had Monday and Tuesday off this week for teacher conferences. And we went on bike rides both days, like during the day. There's not a lot of cars out. Just like the ability to do that stuff is, they're only kids once. Right. That's what I wanted. And I'm finding that, I didn't leave the show because of the off season stuff. I could have made it work in the off season, but it's the whole year round stuff, and just being available for that stuff that was the goal. And I'm finding that I'm definitely missing talking to you guys too, but I'm finding that that's been very rewarding, and I'm glad that that's working out that way.
Nice.
I've been enjoying the relative less of the rat race than post NFL draft, obviously in season, and then just looking at the calendar. It'd be like, today is April 3rd. I believe is the draft the 24th, I believe?
Yeah, I think it's the 24th. Yeah.
So,
I'm still lurking on social, and I keep seeing the countdowns, and I'm like, the biggest thing I keep doing is I'm like, man, I'm missing chatting on ship chasing, because I could just ask Kareem, like, what do your numbers say about this prospect? I knew way more about the rookie class at this time every other year by just like throwing shit at you for the, these months that I have not been doing. So I've been talking to Sean a little, but Sean's a lot more cryptic about it. So, I mean, I'm not as well versed on who the prospects even are, to be honest with you guys.
Yeah, I feel like I'm more tied to draft capital, I think is fair to say. So Sean can't tell you that Jarquez Hunter's actually his running back 3.
Well, I mean, and Sean hasn't done quite as, he did on RotoViz, he did a big super flex like mock draft, rookie mock draft. So he kind of shared some thoughts, and he deviated from the market in a big way on a handful of players. But it seems like he's taken a little bit of a break too. I know I was trying to book him for an after dark, and he said he had just recently moved as well. So everybody's smelling the roses right now.
Yeah, he's definitely.
Although Sean's been way ahead on DJ Giddens, who's actually like, now we're starting to see draft capital start to maybe move in his way. So I do enjoy seeing which guys he's like way ahead of market on, because like it feels like more often than not the market shifts that way anyway.
Well, that's what Gretch, you saying like you feel like you're behind on the rookies or whatever. I still feel for me that there's just like 10 of these running backs that, yes, I know they all have different names, but I have a hard time like separating them in my head. And I'm starting to get, okay, this guy's a little more explosive. This guy's more of a pass catcher. But it's like when you're in these drafts, you get to this, Pat, 11th, 12th round, basically like when Scatabo starts. And then it's just like an endless stream of these names. And it's like any of them could rocket up or just completely plummet. And it's like, good luck knowing which one right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's been a big part of the process for me with this deep running back class, like just trying to literally get my head around like who these guys are. Like I feel good about it now, but that's like, a lot of my February was just like, what's the difference between DJ Giddens and Bashal Tootin?
And then the question is like, you need to know the difference because you're writing these up, you're doing dynasty profiles. But then if you're just a best ball bro, the question is, do you need to know the difference, or should you just be like spreading out your bets among this tier?
Well, I think the interesting thing about this year is that the tiers have shifted. So like early on, you would have said that like Jaden Higgins was in the same tier as some of these like kind of just random dart throw receivers, but he now looks like pretty likely to go round 2, maybe early round 2 in the NFL draft, and has kind of like flipped Trey Harris in terms of expected draft capital. So like some of the guys, the biggest thing I've been trying to focus on for best ball is like making sure I have the tiers right, because I think there's been some movement, especially at wide receiver, in kind of what the tiers even are. Like Matthew Golden was going behind Trey Harris when stuff opened, and now I'm taking him ahead of Luther Burden because I think he's going to be the first wide receiver drafted potentially, or at least the second, and Burden might fall to the second round. I still like Burden. I'm taking him like a couple picks after Golden, but that's probably the biggest thing.
Is it grinding the mocks still that you're getting the expected, or is there
grinding the mocks is like too good? So I think he's like got it. He doesn't like release it publicly past like the first round, because I think he's doing stuff with teams maybe. Anyway, us fantasy bros aren't worthy. So I like looking at grinding the mocks for as much data as he has, but then you got to kind of piece it together. So I've been paying attention. Like the Athletic has a consensus big board out to 100. McShay just released a top 150. ESPN Scouts Inc. is pretty good in terms of expected draft capital. They go like all the way out. They've got through the 200s. And then Mock Draft Database is like kind of slow. Like it feels like it's a little, because there's like so many mock drafts in there. I feel like it's not like quick to update, but I use that to help me try to figure it out. And then PFF I'll look at. Yeah, I'm trying to like scrape to get, and it depends like what I'm trying to do. Like for Jarquez Hunter, for example, I like just didn't see him in any stuff. So McShay had him at 150 on his big board, and I'm like, okay, like because with him I'm like, don't be a UDFA, right? Don't be a 7th round pick, and like what are the odds you're a 4th round pick? So it's kind of different for everyone. Where some of these guys you're trying to dial in. Where on day 2 they're going to go if they go day 2, and then some guys I'm just like, are you a UDFA or a 5th round pick?
I love that I just got done talking about how I've been like not paying any attention and doing all the stuff, and then Pat is just very much still Pat, like just grinding. Here's the 19 sources I've looked at to figure out expected draft capital.
Well,
why are you grinding this hard, dude? You won
like
$2 million a couple of years ago. Like
I like this.
You're a dad now.
I enjoy this part of it. Honestly, once the draft goes and it's like, because to me it's like this big mystery, and I get to know the answer soon. Once the draft is over, then the next answer I get is in like December. So I actually enjoy really trying to put together this puzzle that I get feedback on quickly, and it's also like lower stakes. Like if I think that RJ Harvey is going to be a 3rd round pick and he's a 4th round pick, like I'll survive. You know what I mean?
Well, the other part of it, Pat, there is a large part of the best ball player pool that's drafting off of leg up rankings right now and being really in tune. Like if draft capital is going to drive value for a lot of these players, like being it on top of that is going to separate your rankings from maybe
100%
people who aren't, on top of it.
The other thing that I'm thinking about is like it feels to me that like the pre-draft tournaments are a bigger part of the best ball landscape than they used to be. I mean, DraftKings has tournaments now and they didn't used to. So that right there, that's already a pretty big difference compared to like a couple years ago. And so I'm actually thinking about it from my own perspective. Like, I don't think Matthew Golden is a very good prospect relative to like 1st round prospect. Like if you look at 1st round wide receivers, like how good are these 1st round wide receivers? I'd have Matthew Golden like pretty low in that group. But I do think he's going to go 1st round. So I'm actually already starting to think about like, balancing my portfolio. Like, let me get some Matthew Golden while he's in like, the late 70s. I don't really want to have to pay 5th, 6th round prices for this guy if he goes like 12 to Dallas or, goes to the Chargers or something like that. I just don't want to have to like chase the hype. So part of it is I'm actually trying to like figure out which guys I'm trying to bank CLV basically for my entire portfolio and help anyone using the rankings do the same.
The Golden discourse is really fascinating, right? I wrote about it for the Fantasy Life newsletter this morning too, where for a bit it seemed like polarized. It's like, oh, well, if the Cowboys pull the trigger at 12, that's pretty insane for his value. But if not, it doesn't seem like a lot of other evaluators view him as a round 1 prospect. But then I see like both Thor and Friedman both mocked him to the Seahawks, I believe at 18 in their recent mocks, which is kind of almost even middling that thing of like, no, like the league is still going to be high on this guy. So yeah, I mean, Golden is fascinating, but if he is locked into round 1 draft capital, I was basically saying like, it's kind of hard to avoid him in best ball. Like you just kind of have to take it right now.
I think you should take him. And then like, look, if you're overweight on him and he ends up being like a 5th round pick and you're like, this is actually like not a very good bet now, then you're in a better position to not make that bet because you have like a cheaper bag. So that's like with best ball, I come from redraft and I come from, wanting to just be like, this guy sucks, I'm not taking him. But with like, if you're drafting like 1,000 teams, you do start to want to think about like, well, what if I fade this guy when he gets too expensive, but I actually have like the cheapest version of him too. And that's like, if I'm wrong, then I benefit.
Gretch, have you had any boots on the ground takes by like what Seattle has done this offseason? Obviously, with the quarterback, they get rid of the new OC, all that stuff.
I wrote about that at the newsletter a while back. I did I think it's the last thing I wrote, but it was like a reaction to early free agency and talked about some of the things that I thought were going to be most notable from like a team building perspective, just to kind of because I mean, I think at this point in the year for me, one of the big things, because I don't get as much into the prospects for whatever reason. It's just the thing that I don't like. I get way more stoked about it once the draft happens and I know where the fits are. And I'm like, okay, now I want to like learn more about this prospect and how he fits into this team. Can he do these things that I believe will make a lot of.
But when have you done your targets per route run series? Is that post draft? I thought that was pre-draft.
Pre-draft. I did that in January this year. I did it right after the season. That's already
for the
out.
Rookies.
No, I do the targets per route run stuff for the vets. I guess I did do like a little bit of one for the rookies.
Yeah, you've done it for the rookies too.
Yeah, I guess I have to do that at some point. I'll be right around
Sorry
this
to give
time.
you work.
Yeah, you came on the stream and got a homework assignment.
Right around this time last year, I did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. The top 10 in expected draft capital or something like that. I kind of talked through what their TPRR profiles look like. I'll probably do that. Anyway, I was talking about the different team stuff. I just pulled it up because I remember the first two things that I wrote about was I thought the Bears and the Vikings did some really interesting stuff because both teams did so much work on the interior of the trenches on both the offensive and defensive lines, and like how the run game was such an important part of 2024, like real football, and defenses have gotten a lot lighter over the last several years. So that means if you do want to control the run game, you probably do need interior defensive linemen on that side of the ball, or if you want to control the run game offensively, interior offensive linemen are obviously really helpful on that side of the ball. I think there's some teams that are really, really focusing on the interior of both lines right now, because that was something I think that the Eagles did really well. Obviously, the Lions did really well. Anyway, some of those teams are interesting. You were asking about the Seahawks, and I wrote in that one that I was like, their moves were hard to follow at that point, is what I titled their section. And then I talked about it with Sean a little bit on one of the pods right after that, and I was like, I mean, I think they're going to suck. I kind of think they're going to
suck too.
Yeah, they're going to be bad.
It seems bad. The only way they don't suck, because they're actually in good position to take some interior offensive linemen. Like they have extra draft picks now, and they could take like a Gray Zabal or something right in the middle of the first round. There's other guys too, and that's where I would be a little bit more optimistic about them, because like the big thing with Darnold is you have to protect him, and
yep,
I think that Gino was actually doing a lot of work to hide how bad the offensive line was, because he gets the ball really quick. So they better fix that offensive line.
That's a very strong take in this, like as far as boots on the ground, whatever. Maybe I see more of the Seattle opinions. That's a very strong. I mean, Mina Kimes is a big Seattle Seahawks fan. She's had that point at a national level a ton since the switch at QB. But like, I'm pretty sure Danny Kelly, who I think we've had on the show at Ship Chasing in the past, definitely subscribed to that, and several other Seattle analysts or people that are following the Seahawks closely definitely subscribe to that. Where like you're talking about a quarterback who actually did a lot for your offensive line by getting the ball out quickly and those things. And the one game where he got hurt against the Packers, the Seahawks kept getting stops, and it was actually a reasonably close game. It was like a Monday night game, and Sam Howell came in that game. And remember how many sacks Howell took? It was like,
over the second he was in there.
It's always been an issue of his
to protect.
Yeah. It's always been an issue of his, but it really highlighted how much Gino was doing to actually make the offense functional as soon as some other quarterback was in there. And then the other part of it, if I could boil it down to one thing, like as I thought more about it after writing about it initially, being like, it's hard to follow. My big argument would be that, and for years I've felt from a team building perspective, it's really imperative that you understand how to fit talent to fit scheme to talent rather than try to fit talent to your scheme, right? And so I've always talked about Belichick on that point, where early in Tom Brady's career, they did their offense a certain way. Then once they were able to acquire Randy Moss, now we're going to do a shotgun spread offense. We're going to make Wes Welker into this slot receiver. We're going to make Kevin Falk into like one of the very first passing down backs, because that didn't used to really be a thing in the early 2000s. It was like a fullback might catch some passes, like a Larry Centers. You didn't have those guys until Kevin Falk, and then Sean Payton started doing it with Darren Sproles, and then it became a big thing. You know, then you had like Theo Riddick and all these dudes that would catch all these balls. But that was Belichick was a big part of the. I mean, there was other guys in the past, Roger Craig and some of these dudes, but I think Belichick pulled from like the Roger Craig, Bill Walsh, West Coast offense stuff with some of what they did with like the running back out of the backfield, with Wes Welker out of the slot, the 3 receiver sets, which became a big thing for NFL offenses. But then they switched again as soon as they found in that one draft that they should acquire 2 tight ends, Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez. I thought that's where the talent was in that draft. Go bring in the talent. Now let's find a scheme to fit. Like, this is why I think Bill Belichick's the greatest coach of all time. I think he's a scheme encyclopedia, and he always understood I need to bring in really good players, and then it's my job as the coach to put them in the best situations to succeed, to find the scheme that will highlight their rare traits, right? And so then they shifted their offense again, and it was a 2 tight end heavy offense, and Gronk and Aaron Hernandez were the focuses of that era of Patriots football. What the Seahawks decided was, all right, Ryan Grubb's offense didn't work last year. We want to bring in a Shanahan scheme guy. We bring in Clinton Kubiak. And then ever since they brought him in, basically all their decisions have been guys who have done well in those things. So that was the whole thing with the Darnold-Geno thing. Even though Darnold's demonstrably worse as a quarterback, he's supposed to have been successful in a McShanny system. Kevin O'Connell came from under Sean McVay, and obviously he was with the thing that like rehabilitated his image was that he was 1 year in San Francisco and he got the 1 start in week 18 and he backed up, but he played under Kyle Shanahan for a year. And Clint Kubiak is coached under Shanahan. He runs a very similar scheme. This is what if you want to believe Sam Darnold turned his whole career around last year, you believe that it was because of the scheme, because it was the McShanahan scheme, right? The McVay, Shanahan, whatever. And Geno maybe not necessarily directly that quarterback. So that's why they want to go to Darnold. They bring in Marquez Valdes-Scantling because he did some stuff, for the Saints under Clint Kubiak last year. They go get Cooper Kupp, right? And a pretty big deal for a guy who the Rams, who are one of the most analytics heavy teams in the league, were like, this guy's like, as soon as, and they love him. He's breakfast buddies with Stafford. Wasn't he like in McVay's wedding, or McVay was in Kupp's wedding? They're like buds. But the team, the Rams, were like, whatever their internal stuff is on him, they're like, he's not healthy. His hamstring is not healthy anymore. He's not good enough anymore. From the beginning of the offseason, they're like, you're not going to be a Los Angeles Ram anymore. As much as we love you as a human being, you don't have it anymore. We want to get rid of you. Seahawks did the IKB thing there. We know better. We're going to bring him in. He's going to be able to fit our scheme. They did the same thing with Darnold. I think the Vikings, I told you guys this in January, I think the Vikings were never going to bring back Darnold no matter what, based on what I was reading into Kevin O'Connell's comments from the post-game presser of their playoff loss, and they let him walk. Seahawks are like, well, we think he's good. Like, the guy who is actually a really good coach, Kevin O'Connell, who worked with him all last year, is like, I can't win with this dude. Like, I did, but it got found out late in the year, and I need to move on, much like McVay moved on from Jared Goff all those years ago, is what I was reading that as. And I feel like the Seahawks are out here like trying to fit talent to the scheme they want to run, but they're getting guys that they think are going to be good in that scheme, but they're not actually talented. Like, Sam Darnold is not good enough anymore. Cooper Kupp, the Rams have told you, don't think that he can play at that level anymore. He's not healthy enough. He's too old. Marcus Valdes-Scantling has been bad his entire career, right? But he's had spurts of success in big plays and things. They're just
I actually think that signing was fine. I think he kind of
like a depth receiver, fine, but it's just another anecdotal point to the team building concept of, we want to fit players to the scheme that we picked out, as opposed to bring in really good football players that can win at the NFL level against NFL defensive backs. Like, you got to have talent to win. Go find your Rob Gronkowski and then figure out how to utilize him. Don't decide I want a Clint Kubiak scheme and then bring in Marcus Valdes-Scantling because he's like had some success in a Clint. He's not that good,
I think the thing that's weird to me about what the Seahawks are doing is that and I guess the question that we don't have the full answer to what they're doing. Like, I can't tell you for sure what the Seahawks are doing because we haven't had the draft yet, and that'll be pretty clarifying. Like, if they take Jackson Dart or Shador's like live to go to the Seahawks. Daniel Raz just shared in our chat that he was like, he's like 50-1 Shador to the Seahawks. What do you think? I could see it. He's probably going to fall past the top 5, and then who knows after that? What if they take Dart? So if this is all to kind of like create a bridge situation for a rookie, and
then it's not a disaster. Then it could be the Matt Flynn, Russell Wilson, Seahawks stuff of a decade ago, which did work. I mean, Wilson ended up winning the job, and they went on and won a Super Bowl a couple years later. Then it's not a disaster.
And you could also like take a rookie quarterback in the first round and then try to like piece together some offensive linemen later on in the draft, because you do have those extra picks, and like Darnold is gonna get thrown, in the fire a little bit, but so what? He's getting paid very well to do that, and meanwhile, you've got this other quarterback coming up behind him. That would like kind of make sense, because it feels like they're resetting. But if they just like fortify the offensive line and switch to Darnold, then I really don't get it, because like Darnold's worse than Geno. You downgraded I know he's younger. He's younger, but they also like they're committed. They basically did a 1-year deal. So like I think they think Darnold's worse than Geno. I think they downgraded a quarterback.
But that support to your Shedeur or Jackson Dart point is that it was important to them that Darnold was materially cheaper than Geno as well, and they didn't have to be as tied to him and give him as much financial guarantees and all that. So that could mean that they're still in the market for their quarterback of the future, and if they are, then maybe it isn't as much of a disaster as I feel like right now. It's kind of a disaster, because you can't go to a quarterback who's pressure sensitive and not address an offensive line that you've never been able to address under John Schneider for a decade. It's not just last year. They've never been able to build an offensive line. And like Russell Wilson was never a particularly great quarterback, like as far as sack rates and those types of things. Also somewhat pressure sensitive, but he could extend plays and make plays and those types of things. But he never got an opportunity to really work behind a good offensive line in his time in Seattle either, at the peak of his career. And that's part of why his sack rates were so high. He also held the ball. I mean, it was also on him, is sort of my point. But the lines have just, at best in Seattle for the last decade under John Schneider, have been average and mostly below average. It's like, why would we believe that if they even draft offensive linemen that they're going to identify the right ones? Every time they take an offensive lineman on day 1 or day 2, they suck. Like these guys, they love to overdraft dudes that are like day 2 picks in like at 14 overall, and then they're busts. It's like, all right, well, this is just the IKB team, man. They think they know better than everything. The only way they don't suck in my mind is if Mike McDonald just absolutely builds up the defense in a massive way. And I think he like showed some real promise mid-season last year, because they were really struggling like through that halfway point, and then he got the guys to buy in a little bit. And whatever, maybe he's just trying to find like a do no harm offense. And I do think like the Clint Kubiak stuff could work if they're playing from ahead and really just establishing the run and then doing a lot of like play action, rollout stuff, yak opportunities like the Niners like to do off of that. When you're playing from ahead, all of that can kind of work. You'd have to have a dominant defense. And I don't know if they have the talent on that side of the ball, but that's their one path, is if Mike McDonald can develop a really dominant defense.
Also, I was just going to say, we did get news that Geno Smith literally just got a big contract extension.
Good for him.
As we went on air. So he's getting the bag there.
Yeah, there's been stuff that like the Raiders are not taking like Shedeur if he goes there, if he falls there. So I think the Raiders are. I get what the Raiders are doing. Like I think what they're doing makes a lot of sense. They're just like, we're gonna put a good product out on the field and kind of like build it from there. There's some comments in the chat saying, that they're doing a soft reset. They have a scapegoat in Darnold, or they'll just take a better quarterback next year. That would make more sense to me if this was McDonald's first season. But to come in, you have the OC, you're kind of middling, you miss the playoffs, you're sort of a worse version of what you used to be under Pete Carroll, frankly. And then you're like, okay, now I'm not blowing it up. I'm just going to be like an even worse version of this Pete Carroll experience. It's like the same kind of experience, but it's just getting worse every year. That's how you get yourself fired.
That's how you get yourself fired. That's the part of this that I'm so frustrated about is I don't think he's going to survive past Clint Kubiak if they do tank as much as I think. And I was pretty stoked about the head coaching hire. I'm not even a huge Seahawk fan, but just being around here, a lot of my family and friends are big Seahawk fans. Just like they bring in a guy who's really cerebral. Everyone's got all these really positive things to say about him. He's this defensive whiz mastermind. The other thing with everything you just said, it speaks to a pretty questionable process last year because they brought in Ryan Grubb and they brought him in kind of late. He actually had followed UW's head coach Kalen DeBoer to Alabama and accepted the OC job there. And then like a month later wound up in Seattle or sometime later. I can't remember the exact timeline, but I feel like it was fairly late that they finally filled that OC job. And regardless of what the timing was, McDonald came in as a new head coach and presumably would have had some say in that. And I guess their offense wasn't so bad last year, but they fired Grubb because if you hear one telling of it, the loss to the Giants at home last year where they got really, really pass heavy was like a turning point for everyone internally. They lost to a really bad Giants team. They ended up losing the division on a tiebreaker. That was, some people were pointing back to this game that was in like week 6 or week 8 or something, but being like, that's the game where we lost the division. We should have been able to beat the New York Giants at home, which, things happen, but their pass rate was super high at that point. And apparently McDonald had talked about wanting to pull the pass rate back, and Grubb just got even more pass heavy in that week or whatever it was. And there became some internal disconnect. My point is, you are a new head coach. You came in, you did an extensive search for an offensive coordinator. Doesn't speak really well about who you landed on that first year, that there was such a philosophical disconnect by the middle part of your first season with the way he was running the offense that you needed to fire him after 1 year, even when the offense was not that bad statistically, right? Like they weren't terrible. And now you want to do a complete overhaul and reset, like everything else you were talking about. It's just like McDonald's going to wind up probably getting fired after this second. I agree with everything you said about this is what happens when you're a new head coach, but because it's happening now, it speaks really poorly about 2024 as well is my main point. And then,
I think if you're a Seahawks fan, maybe it is okay. Because who cares if you don't have Mike McDonald? You know what I mean? Maybe this is a step in the right direction if they don't take a quarterback and give it a go with Darnold. And okay, if Darnold is really good, then awesome. These dudes ship chasing bros were completely wrong. Darnold's great. We win. That's cool. And if Darnold sucks, then we'll have a good draft pick next year and maybe we'll find the answer there. So I think it's I actually kind of get it. If you're pulling for the Seahawks, I totally understand why you would just be like, nope, this is going to work. Because if it doesn't work, it might be even better than if it does work. But I really don't get it from Mike McDonald's perspective because he just won't be there for the what if it doesn't work part.
Right.
I will say I have felt it anytime I've had to stare down the barrel of a JSN click at the 2-3 turn I used to love that click. It felt so good. And now every time I get a pit in my stomach as I do it, the systemic risk of the wheels falling off in this being an 8th round pick that I'm taking at the 2-3 turn feels very real at times.
It feels
and
real.
What's the upside? How does their offense work? Because I think the Clint Kubiak
if Ben's doing the what is JSN's upside argument, we're too high on him. You're supposed to tell me that there's upside.
What upside for the team is more the point, because Clint Kubiak wants to run a very run-based offense. Before Chris Olave got hurt last year, he was having a disappointing season. Chris Olave is a really good football player, right? But the Clint Kubiak offense wasn't necessarily highlighting Chris Olave. It was highlighting Alvin Kamara, right? And then a lot of play action and when they had the huge weeks 1 and 2 last year, they had some shot plays to Rashid Shaheed, and they had a ton of Kamara was crushing, right? Remember how they started 2-0 and they scored 100 points in the first 2 games? They beat the Cowboys in Dallas and everything. I don't even know if Olave had monster games in those games, right? Even when they're rolling, what is this offense? Yeah, I don't know. I love JSN, but I'm pretty nervous about him too, because you talk about the systemic risk, and then you think about the whole range of outcomes. You start thinking about, what if it actually goes good? And I'm like, I don't even know. The way that I think it goes good is if this is a defensive-oriented team that runs the ball well, right? That's the way that Seattle actually doesn't crater. So it's risky to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to take him when I need the solid wide receiver points, meaning let's say I go, running back McBride, then I'm I could really use a dude who's gonna catch some passes,
which is a very normal start from the front part of the board because you have 4 running backs at the top, and then McBride is always there at the 2-3. Yeah, I've been in that spot multiple times.
So that tends to be where I take him. If I go like Jefferson Ladd, I'm taking like Garrett Wilson or something. Like I'm gonna, or Marvin Harris. Like I'm swinging for the fences a little bit more. It's hard for me to see JSN like going nuts in this setup. Now again, if they fix the interior of the offensive line, I'll change my tune a little.
Yeah.
The Saints won. I'm gonna give you guys a trivia question. The Saints won week 1, 47-10. They won week 2, 44-19. They scored 91 points across the 2 games. Obviously, big blowouts. You don't throw as much. How many yards combined do you think Chris Olave had in those 2 games?
Well, I remember those were like the Shaheed.
He probably had like
games.
60% of a Shaheed.
I'm gonna say he had like 84 yards across those 2 games.
92. Very good guess. Very good guess. 92
How many
receiving
did
yards.
Shaheed have?
He had an 81-yard game, but then he had 11 in the other game. 92. And I mean, like, if you're
But wait, what did Shaheed have? I
want
to see if I was right.
Oh, Shaheed had 73 and 96. So yeah, I mean, he was up over 150. Like I think you're like exactly on. Yeah. But I mean, like, this is Olave was like their main dude. The Shaheed stuff was big plays. He had 2 long touchdowns, 65-yard TD, 70-yard TD and 59-yard TD. But I mean, if you're scoring 90 points, you want your receivers to be involved at least as like the lead is being built. You know, those are the 2 most emotional games the Saints played all last year under Kubiak, and we learned that when they were ahead, like it wasn't featuring Chris Olave. They were really good young Ohio State wide receiver that he now has another one to play with in Seattle.
And the other thing too, like I like that Olave JSN comp, but if all the intangibles with that comp are in Olave's favor, right? You get all the dome games, a much easier division as well. Like the JSN stuff could get bleak. Like I'm already terrified of Sam Darnold, like out in the cold weather. You also have a team that has way more of a run identity, right? In the Seahawks than even the Saints. So man, it could get bleak.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way it works out for him, I guess, is if it really does get so bad that they're losing every week, but their pass rate has to sky. I mean, then they throw 40 passes a game.
Right. Yeah. You need the coach who's like completely revamping everything to make sure something doesn't happen. You need for that thing to happen. You need for them to become a passing identity team.
Yeah. Any other?
What do we do then if we're not taking JS? That's a tricky part of the board because I often need a receiver. Is there anyone else who you pull up there? Like Harrison, I guess you could pull up, but it seems. I mean, I've been pretty bullish on Harrison, but that does feel kind of expensive.
I haven't
Adams
drafts. I can't do drafts if you haven't been to the Oregon drives.
I'll pull up
what receivers
ADP in that range.
off the dome. It might be you're not anchored to the ADP like us.
I'm not, but I don't even know who's gone at that point. So
would you take like Mike Evans?
I'd consider that.
Okay,
I'm not.
He's at like the 3-4
Evans,
turn.
Yeah, I mean Godwin's coming back off an injury, right? They kind of brought back everybody other than the offensive coordinator, but like they're going.
DJ Moore.
Yeah, I like DJ Moore there. No Keenan Allen this year.
I think Adams over JSN seems easy.
You might need to lower
too.
JSN.
It is tricky. I agree. I think McLaurin's pretty frothy there. I like McLaurin a lot, but he didn't do anything significantly different in terms of target earning last year. Is just super, super efficient, which is great. But like again, the story on McLaurin has always been that like he's a really good, but probably not elite, like top 10 receiver. The receivers I take like 2-3 turn, I want to be like guys that can finish as the top 5 overall wide receiver. Everyone's like, he's tied to Jaden Daniels, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, yeah, he was last year, and Jaden Daniels played at like legit almost MVP level last year. What were his numbers last year? He had a bunch of touchdowns, but the rest of it, receptions, the yards and stuff, were not, indicative of this ADP. He could still get there on the TDs, obviously, but you have Debo there now. Like things are actually probably moving worse in 2025 for McLaurin than his situation last year? You can't double count that he has Jaden Daniels, is my point. Jaden Daniels played really well last year already.
Yeah. This is third round is like a tricky range. And I find myself gravitating more to just, hey, I wish I was on the other side of the board. So I just get Evans and Adams at value than having to like pull them up to the third, because I do seem to like that pocket better.
Yeah, this is fascinating. I'd probably just take Trey McBride.
That's what I do.
He's right there.
Dude, I have so much Bowers and McBride right now. It's really wild. But they're just
Bowers is still going 15. I remember.
Yeah, man.
I remember saying when we did a first look in January with you guys, I was like, why is he not going by Neighbors and Thomas? He's the same player, but he's got a tight end thing next to him, which is better for him, right?
The offseason has been fantastic for him.
It's been good for him. What are we doing? How is he not going ahead of those guys? He should be going right with Neighbors, and I like Neighbors and Thomas a lot, but
where are those guys going on?
There's a tight end derangement syndrome.
Similar. Here. Henry goes in at like 11 on DK, so that like mixes it up a little bit, but it's pretty similar otherwise.
Okay, because again, like you want to talk about supercharging the value over there. Like if you think it's a value on underdog, you're getting an extra half point for every one of those receptions. And it's like the inverse happened with Bowers. Like we were going to be in on Bowers no matter what, but then you get Geno, which is a quarterback upgrade. It's like, the kind of like, what if the quarterback wheels fall off? We got Desmond Ridder at the end of last year, and that didn't look too good for Bowers. And now it's like every time you click Brock, it feels incredible. Although I clicked him on my stream on Monday, and there was a lot of people in the chat who are like, I have 0% Bowers, or I'm going to be underweight Bowers this year. I couldn't really wrap my head around that take.
Why? I really don't get it.
Geno. I couldn't get
Geno is awesome for him. Like that is you telling me like a veteran quarterback is going to go to the Raiders? Like I'd probably like hand pick Geno, of the guys would be like realistic. And then they get Carroll, they get Chip Kelly. Like there's going to be pace in this offense. It's going to be somewhat run heavy, but it's not a bad spot to be a tight end. There's going to be plenty of play action plays. Like I think Bowers is this could be an amazing season.
I mean, I guess if you make a case like on raw scoring, when I'm comparing them to like Neighbors and Brian Thomas going into year 2 from last year, Bowers had 1,194 yards, like 1,200 yards and 5 TDs. His 112 catches are incredible. Set the rookie record, broke Puka Nakua's record. If you want to go back to the year prior, a year 2 guy was going in the late first, coming off a monster year 1. But I'm not just looking like specifically at what he did last year. You also have to look at the fact that Bowers, like, he was underpriced last year also, but his prospect profile was a dude that came into Georgia as a true freshman and was immediately their leading receiver, and then was even better on like a per route basis his second year, then was even better his third year. This guy looked like a complete can't miss prospect on every level, and then showed it as a rookie, broke the rookie receptions record. So it's not like my point is, like, I get that you could say because he's a tight end, maybe he doesn't have 1,500 yard upside or 1,600 or 1,700. And Brian Thomas like had 10 touchdowns last year. Maybe Bowers only had 5, but Thomas had 1,282 yards. He didn't even have that many more yards than Bowers last year. And Bowers was the better prospect, bar none. He's the clearer like floor play for the rest of his career. This is the guy that's going to be in the Hall of Fame. Period. Brian Thomas is probably going to be a very, very good wide receiver. I cannot say I'm that confident, like barring injury, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. Brock Bowers, Hall of Fame tight end someday. Period. Like I'm very, very confident in that. Like 95% sure. This dude is like that good. I guess I don't know. I don't understand why he would be chasing a player like that. They're both coming off monster rookie years, and you're projecting ahead to year 2, and you're like, this is a year 2 profile I want to target. But this one also fills a tight end position need, which is like
are people not excited enough about Chip Kelly? I feel like maybe that's part of it. Like Chip Kelly leveling up from who was it? It was the old Bears guy, Luke Getsy. Who was their OC last year for the Raiders? Do you guys remember?
Tiger Waldron? Oh no, for the Raiders.
For the Raiders.
Was
it?
I don't.
It was Getsy last year. Sorry, I was reading the chat.
Okay.
You asked who the OC was. Yeah, it was Getsy last year.
Yeah, Getsy. Yeah, I mean that to me is like a pretty big. That's a pretty big difference. Getsy stinks.
Yeah,
he's not good.
I don't think people are thinking about OC stuff with that. I honestly think it's lingering perception of like elite tight end not hitting last year, and people just saying. I heard someone make a 20-round versus 18-round comment, which I do think is fair. Not to fade Brock Bowers, but it is very easy to do late 3Q or tight end builds in this landscape right now. There's plenty of options late. So I understand people tilting their exposure there, but I do think it's just saying like, I touched the hot stove of early round tight ends. I got burned by a couple of these guys. I'm just going to punt it off. I'll just find this year's Jonnu Smith and I won't deal with this shit.
Which is my whole point when I'm doing the positional cross positional comps is I just couldn't think that's more of a wrong. Like, I think you're right. And I guess I'm just trying to say for anyone who maybe is having, like, if they sit with the reasons they're not drafting Bowers and that's what they decide, I couldn't think that's a dumber thing to do. I think that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
It seemed like you were gonna go easy there for a second.
No, it's like, I'm sorry. He's a football player.
You know, it is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard.
It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. He's a football player. I don't care what position we put next to, what color is next to his name on this screen. We are not just drafting players in spreadsheets who get numbers next to them. Dude, these guys go play football games. Do you guys watch in the fall? Like, anyone who's not drafting Brock Bowers, did you watch the Raiders games last year? He's a football player that happens to have a blue TE1 next to his name. But, like, again, he's going to be a Hall of Fame pass-catching force at the NFL level for the rest of his career. Like, I get the tight end point, but he's not the same as Kyle Pitts or any of the other tight ends that have caused us to feel that way about tight ends. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just a position. It's just a tag. Like, we're just putting a little, like, weird box on him. I don't know. He's a human. He's not a human. That's the point. He's fucking superhuman, right?
It's honestly a good point.
He's not a, yeah. And I mean, the other thing too, with the Brian Thomas stuff, like, and again, I've been kind of like the slight bear, like, at pushing back on his ADP. And again, I'm talking like a span of like 2 to 3 slots, right? Like, this is like micro stuff. Like, I want to take Neighbors and Bowers over him, et cetera. But like, all of that production last year was with Kirk and Ingram out of the lineup. He was going up against Gabe Davis and Parker Washington for target competition. Brock Bowers was alongside Jacoby Myers, who has been a professional-ass wide receiver who's consistently earned targets throughout his entire career. And like, he was still, producing at an elite clip there too. So like, I think that's notable for him.
Definitely. And go back to college, dude. He was better than Ladd McConkey, who had a great rookie year for the Chargers, is actually probably not a bust, who went early second round and is a good NFL player. It looks like Bowers was way better than him. He was the focal point over McConkey. They would hand the ball to Bowers, and Bowers averaged 10 yards per rush in his college career. Like, this guy's a freaking freak of nature. Like, every time he has the ball in his hands, he's impossible to bring down or anything. I don't know.
How about this? Someone was asking
really
about
good football players.
People were asking about in tight end premium. Apparently his ADP, I haven't done a draft over there yet. He's going 5. I mean,
I think he should be the 101.
Easy case to 101. I was just going to say.
I would.
Yeah, I think it should be the 101.
I wouldn't even hesitate. I wouldn't take a running back over. Like, I get taking Barkley.
Chase, I guess.
In tight end premium,
Chase,
I can't do that.
It's like it would be him or Chase.
Yeah. I think it should be the 101.
I cannot imagine him going later than 102 in tight end premium. It's just like, it doesn't make sense to me. I don't know. That's just
Neil's saying it's easier to see Thomas's volume increase, not easy to see Bowers' volume increase. That doesn't make sense to me.
It's the opposite to me. Brian Thomas is going to have more target competition.
I mean, I think both will see target increases. I think Liam Cohen is smart enough to just like run the offense through Brian Thomas. I think he's going to be a much better offense.
So Bowers had 153. Brian Thomas only had 133. Right? Like, there's probably room for Brian Thomas to get up to 150 this year. I agree with you guys. It is. Sorry, I cut off the point you were making, but I completely agree with it. That there is going to be, like, Brian Thomas's volume exploded when everyone else was hurt. The other 3 dudes they thought were going to produce were all off the field. Ingram,
but they've only traded those guys now.
Yeah.
So they're off the field still. Yeah, I think Thomas is a great bet for more volume this year, like a great bet. But I do like, dude, Chip Kelly runs like with pace. Like this is going to be a well-designed, efficient passing game that will also have a decent amount of volume, in part because they're not going to be switching between Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. They should be able to sustain drives better. They should be able to put up more points. Like this offense, I think, will be a lot more functional. So, I mean, that's one way to get more targets. You actually just like get first downs and stay on the field, you know? I think he'll see
I love
more
this
targets
point from A. Schmall. He says, just look at the guys Bowers dusted as a true freshman. It's like 8 day 2 picks. It truly is. Like, go to sportsreference.com. Go pull up Georgia's team that year. I'm going to do it right now. Because it's not just Ladd. It was Adonai Mitchell. It was Jermaine Burton.
Do it right now.
It's all of these fucking guys that are like, they all ended up getting drafted by NFL teams seriously highly. And you have this rookie or freshman come in and absolutely dust these dudes. Like, I mean, Brock Bowers is generational. Like, literally the actual term generational. James Cook was on that team. Kenny McIntosh was on that team. Darnell Washington was on that team and was older. George Pickens was on that team, although he missed most of that year, I think. Zamir White was on this team. Like, yeah, some of those guys are running backs, but like the whole freaking team is NFL talent. And this guy came in as a freshman and had 882 yards. No one else had 500 receiving yards. He dusted them by 400 receiving yards. And then he went on to be better the next 2 years and then break the rookie reception record. And we're like, but historically, the tight end has done certain things. And historically, I want to put this guy in a box where the historical stuff has it's like, dude,
well, the other thing is that historically it's like a dominant best ball strategy. That's the other part I don't get. Like, unfortunately, it didn't pay off last year because like George Kittle was a tight end 7, but otherwise it would have. And it's been like this to me is it's clearly a cheat code for these single week, any tournaments with a single week, but also like the tight ends are showing up on the season long best ball championships too. So it just seems like a really good idea to score points at the tight end position if you're trying to score a shitload of points. Turns out that matters. And one of these guys, now you can find the dudes late, of course, but generally, last year we got a little excited about some dudes who didn't turn out to be wide receivers that with tight end eligibility, right? And some older guys that fell off. But goddamn, if Bowers is not a wide receiver with tight end eligibility, like, then we're never getting one again.
Right. And to your point about like the tight end trends, like I do want to speak to that a little too, because I get that early tight end has not been great, and it certainly wasn't last year. I was one of the biggest proponents of it, and it didn't hit in the way that I thought it was going to. Tight end's a position where you're talking about very few data points that make up the positional trend. There's only so many. There's not even 32 really, because there's a lot of offenses that aren't even utilizing the position from like a schematic perspective. We end up with like 15 names that really matter. Like really going into the season and after, there's obviously a few that come off the board a little bit, but it's not as robust as running back and wide receiver when we try to talk about after the season, whether early or late or mid worked. It's really based on just how a few dudes went, like how their seasons went. But I can tell you from playing this this sport based on a sport, this hobby that we do for 20 years.
Let's call it a sport.
Yeah. There was a stretch right when Rob Gronkowski and Jimmy Graham came in where if you took Jimmy Graham in the first round, which I did in like multiple leagues that year, you basically won your league like off of one pick. He was like a complete league winner because the elite tight ends were not good that year, whatever year that was. And I know there was another year with Gronk who I didn't take, but I know that it was like if you had Gronk, you won. There's a reason people have talked about the value or the virtues of elite tight end. It's also been true of Kelsey in multiple years, including 2022 or 2023 was a huge one where Kelsey gapped the rest of the position by 100 points. I understand the late round tight ends can score. I understand in best ball, if you draft 3 and you have the 20 rounds to do it, I get that. That's a compelling point to me, the 20 round point. Like you can still potentially Frankenstein together some tight end production, all that stuff. I'm just saying like the stuff that you've seen with elite tight end and the trends and everything is not always indicative of what's going to happen the next year. There's not a lot of names there. If Bowers is the player that I'm talking about, and if he gaps the position by 100 points like Kelsey has done in his prime, like Gronk and Graham did in their primes and those types of things, elite tight end will win in 2025. Whether it did in 2024 or not, it will if he gaps the position by 100 points. there have been those seasons. That does happen. It's not impossible for it to not happen. I love the chat where elite athletes draft leads.
I wrote
Let's
up
get our
for
measurables.
fantasy,
Let's go all the combine.
I wrote up for Fantasy Life a couple weeks ago my preferred tight end strategy right now in drafts, and I called it Barbell, where it's elite tight end at the top, one of Bowers, McBride, or Kittle, and then take advantage of all the rookie value late. Like I really like the trio of Fannin, Arroyo, and Mason Taylor. And it's like you get that locked in guy who can probably just carry zeros from the end of your bench anyways, and you give yourself a crack at another like rookie making difference maker who, you know, could see an increase in value. And I know, Pat, you just wrote up a lot of those rookie tight ends on leg up, and it seemed like you were pretty excited about them as far as being best ball values right now as well.
Arroyo and Fannin, I think, are just good. I would put them in the golden bucket of like, these dudes are gonna get drafted on day 2. They're gonna. Every kind of the film evals are really strong on both guys for sort of different reasons. Arroyo has, I would say, they both kind of have pretty bad statistical profiles. Arroyo, you're like really kind of leaning on the film evals, but the evals are like, this dude has serious receiving traits. Like he moves, he gets open downfield, and he was a pretty good deep producer. So you can definitely like, I don't even know if you squint. You almost have to shut your eyes and dream, but the draft capital will be there. And Mason Taylor is just like absolute pro, you know, classic Y tight end, gonna be like able to earn a spot early on in his rookie season. So like you're kind of hoping he's like a Dalton Schultz or something, but he's completely free, and I think there's a decent chance that happens. Fannin was the dude after writing it up where I was just like, I'm tired of being reasonable. Like this dude, this is an insane profile. This is an insane profile for a tight end. Like he had a 50% dominator rating. He like breaks the yards per route run stuff. He breaks the yards per team attempt stuff. Like this dude, the entire offense ran through him, and he's awesome after the catch. He's kind of Bowersy in that way where like he absolutely crushed Bowers' yards after catch totals, and Bowers led the FBS for 3 straight seasons. He had more yards after catch than Luther Burden had yards last year. It's like this guy's like, I don't know if it's going to work. It probably won't, because the NFL seems pretty skeptical. But if you look on big boards and stuff, he's still in like the, let's say 75 to 100 range. It's not like he's a 6th round pick or something. Yeah, he's going to get drafted day 2 most likely. He's just not a 2nd round pick. So we're talking.
I didn't
about
realize that he was like going to get actual capital. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think he'll be at worst like a 4th rounder, and it'll be a little bit dependent on where he lands and the type of the offensive coordinator that he has or the head coach that he has, because he is a specific type of player, and he could land with someone who's got some dumb like out of the backfield H-back stuff instead of just using him as a big slot. But if he gets used as a big slot who's awesome after the catch, he's a literal cheat code. He's just a big slot receiver, and he's basically free. He's actually fallen throughout the big board.
I had to force myself to take other guys.
I don't have enough.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say the same. I've been forcing myself to more Arroyo and Taylor just because Fannin just always there. But he's the best bet for draft capital of those 3, right?
No, they're the bet. The other 2 are the best bet for draft capital, but Fannin's profile just is head and shoulders above them. Yeah.
As far as production and the fact that all the models will tell you for receiving stats that like being able to catch the ball and put yards up and score touchdowns at the college level is really good for being able to do that at the NFL level. This is a dude who had 117 catches and 1,555 yards and 10 TDs last year, and a rushing TD, so 11 TDs. Like, really good at football. He's good at doing that thing that we like.
I invoke the name of Bowers. It is funny because Adam says he's not close to the level of athlete as Bowers. Remember when people said we couldn't take Bowers because the athleticism wasn't good enough?
Yeah.
He didn't test. So that's a funny
because he's got a receding hairline.
Yeah, he's got a receding
balding.
hairline. He looked weird.
Maybe is that why his ADP is so low? That photo next to Gronk was so seminal. That still carries keeping his ADP.
It definitely does.
Like that's why I keep just repeating the things that he's actually accomplished, so people can realize that I know he looks like that, and I can't quite grasp it. But he's like one of the greatest. He's going to be one of the greatest tight ends of all time, even though he looks like an insurance salesman. Have you
the
looked
thing
at
with
Harold
Harold Fannin,
Fannon's game log recently?
it's
so
insane.
funny.
And he produced against Penn State. He produced against Texas A&M. So the thing with Harold Fannin is, when I say he's like Bowers, I don't mean he's a quality of prospect bet equivalent to Bowers, or that he will be like Bowers as a pro. What I mean is that, like Bowers, the way you use Fannin is on behind the line of scrimmage or short or intermediate targets. Honestly, he's okay deep too. But the point is to get the ball in his hands and let him run and break tackles, like it is with Bowers. Now, how good is he? Is he a Bowers level bet? Absolutely not. Bowers is like the best tight end prospect ever, or one of them. Fannin is like a guy you should take in the early second round of rookie drafts. It's not the same, but it is like the same. Like for me, when I'm thinking about these tight ends, I want kind of one of two things. I want you to be like a big wide receiver who gets open, like Colston Loveland. Colston Loveland is like, the bet is this dude's just a straight up wide receiver who runs routes and will earn targets. Or I want you to be absolutely insane with the ball in your hands and be a yak monster, which is kind of what Tyler Warren is, but also what Fannin is. And does it work in the NFL? Is he really a yak monster, or was he just a yak monster at Bowling Green? I don't know. It's entirely possible that he just beat up on bad competition and it won't translate. But like, it is free to find out if it translates. And if it translates, you will win leagues. This dude will smash.
And to your point, they played at Penn State and at Texas A&M. Penn State played all the way into the national semifinal. They were the number 8 team in the nation, and Bowling Green at Penn State lost 34-27. And in that game, Harold Fannin had 11 catches for 137 yards and a TD. He was like the reason that they almost went into Happy Valley and beat Penn State. And then the very next week, they went into Texas A&M and lost by 6, which is, I mean, Texas A&M is not a bad team in the SEC. They went, looks like they went 8-5 last year. Like, they weren't as good as Penn State necessarily, but they lost by 6 in that game. And Harold Fannin had 8 catches for 145 yards and a touchdown in that game. I mean, again, he was their whole team. He was their top producer by a lot. I mean, he's the guy, the reason they almost beat 2 really good teams, a Big Ten and an SEC team, back-to-back weeks in non-conference play. The other thing with Fannin, the degree of competition does matter, but like, to your point, like when he got an opportunity to play against better competition, he was awesome. Played in a bowl game. 17 catches for 213 yards and a TD. That was against Arkansas State. It was still kind of lower competition, but Arkansas State was good enough to earn a bowl bid. He had 213 yards in his bowl game with 17
catches. We play in PPR leagues. Like, the other thing is that Harold Fannin, so the dude was absolutely insanely productive at all depths. And then if you looked at his contested target rates, 13% on all targets, 15% on deep targets, both those are very low. So that I look at those numbers to try to help me gauge separation, right? We don't have reception perception. We don't have the route running stuff. We don't have open score or anything. We're kind of like, we're trying to figure out, were these guys able to get separation? Well, it's nice to like not have many of your targets contested, especially when you're getting 17 of them because you're the entire offense and everyone knows it, including the defense. Everyone knows he was 50% dominator rating. Everyone knew this guy was getting the ball. He wasn't really getting contested targets, and he was seeing a lot of targets deep, intermediate, and short. It wasn't just like scheme stuff. So feels like he could get open at Bowling Green. Let me put it like that. He could get open at Bowling Green. Now, he's duck-footed. He looks really weird when he runs. I think people have a really hard time getting over that.
I haven't heard this part of the story yet.
Yes. Every scout is like, I don't know, man, he's duck-footed. Pigeon-toed, that's okay. Duck-footed, nah.
Wow, I've never heard the duck-footed. This is up there with what?
Well, that means like his toes go like this?
Yes. Pigeon-toed is cool. Pigeon-toed is actually like, you want pigeon-toed? This goes to baseball scouts too. Baseball scouts are into this stuff. Pigeon-toed, good. Duck-footed, bad. And he's duck-footed. And I swear to God, he's losing like a round of draft capital because of the way the direction that his feet point.
Oh,
he would be a second-round pick if he was pigeon-toed.
Pat, literally from an hour ago. Tight end Harold Fannin Jr. runs like a duck. Even his mom has pointed out his unique running style that has caught the eyes of NFL scouts.
I'm taking the duck-footed discount. I'm taking it. I like there's a bunch of pictures of duck.
I know. I'm just like, what am I going to stumble? Jimmy Fannin Jr. posting actual duck.
From 2013, he's cooking duck.
Look at this.
Yeah.
Look at his duck-footed. Oh, God, he's duck-footed. Now, did he score a touchdown and make 3 or 4 people miss? Yes, but who cares because his feet point the way I don't like.
This is why people have a
football.
healthy distrust of the film community, as if like these are the conclusions they're coming to.
Right. This is the like swivel hips. This is the new thing. I've seen highlights of him, and I did know he ran a little bit weird, but even like watching that cartoon porn,
I'm trying to find other duck. My search might need to be reframed.
What are you looking at, man? Jesus.
The way that he runs doesn't seem to affect the to me, like the highlights. It like doesn't seem to affect his balance or his contact balance or any of those things. He's clearly like still comfortable on his feet. So I never thought that it was something that I'd like.
The chat's
like
going
said,
nuts.
like he's
Apparently,
juking dudes out.
It slows you down and all this stuff. You know what? I'm sure he'd be a little faster if he was not duck-footed. Okay, like I'm not going to dispute your friggin' studies, but like you don't know, like he might be fine as a duck-footed player. Would he be better if he wasn't duck-footed? Probably, but like you can't just be like, "He's duck-footed, therefore he can't move." Like he just was half an offense. I'm pretty sure he can fucking move.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to find a way to incorporate this into because I got the best ball breakfast, feed the ducks, all of that. Harold Fannin might have to become the new poster boy for that show. I love that we're finally getting a new term into the film watching lexicon. He's too duck-footed. That's why you can't draft him.
Yeah,
Incredible.
You guys ever
seriously,
hear
like and it's not.
There's a little
people
like
bring it up.
There's a little bit of like a cult thing about the old Darkwing Duck theme song. You remember that TV show? That needs to be Harold Fannin's theme song.
Do we need a ship chasing clip that's Harold Fannin highlights to the Darkwing Duck?
Yeah, man. Well, as you can tell, I'm pretty in, so he might be a highlight player. Might want to cook that one up already.
I love what the chat is devolving to now. Just this guy, Pete Peterson, ducks are violent sexually.
Okay.
Yeah, those corkscrew penises, man. You got to be careful.
Yeah, you got to be careful.
Goodness. Well, Gretch.
When there's trouble, you call DW. Darkwing Duck.
Zach, go ahead and make that.
Yeah, we just need that now. Yeah, that one's locked in.
Gretch, are you going to join us for the draft stream?
Yes. Yeah. I'll definitely come hang. I mean, nice. I'll probably join for as much as you guys want to have me on for, because it's the draft. I'll have to kind of like obviously make sure that I don't have like a freaking softball game that night or something like that. But
it's crazy. I mean, today's the 3rd. We'll do 2 more shows, 10th and 17th, and then the draft is the 24th, 3 weeks from today. So yeah, we got to get our shit together and get our guests lined up. But yeah, man, you're welcome.
3 weeks from today. Wow. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. I'll come hang for sure. I want to dick around with you guys on draft night.
Yeah.
I'll probably crack a few beers. I have not drank in 2025 either. That's the other thing I've been doing.
Well, now I don't know if you've been watching White Lotus, but there's a part where one of the characters has been off the sauce and then falls off the wagon with one of the characters. Yeah. And I'm like, Gretch, I don't want to. Are you familiar? Have you been watching White Lotus?
I've been watching. I know exactly.
I don't want to Sam Rockwell you here.
Well, I don't know if he'll go full Sam
That's not the situation, though. I've just been working out a lot and stuff.
You haven't found
keep it a little more together than Sam
I'm still gonna get drunk again in my life. I'm not planning to not drink forever.
All right, let's go out. Let's see where the night goes.
Anything else people should look out for? I know you guys have been doing some stealing bananas. Anything coming on the Substack?
Well, yeah, there's this really big post that I've been planning for. It's a targets per out run breakdown of the rookie wide receiver, the wide receiver prospects. I've been planning it for weeks. Pat mentioned it earlier. Yeah, it's something I'm all over, so I'll write that up.
You came to the show to get more work. Yeah.
All right, but I'm gonna need that targets per hour run piece.
Some stuff with Sean at Stealing Bananas, and yeah, I mean, I definitely after the draft and after softball season ends here, I'll be hitting it hard. Projection season, all that stuff right around the corner. So I'm excited for the summer. I'm very rejuvenated. I'm gonna have plenty of content written content for sure in the summer. So yeah.
Awesome. Pat, you did a show with JJ. I haven't had a chance to listen to that. Anything else people should check out?
Yeah, we did a deep dive into the entire class for Dynasty and best ball purposes. Highly recommend checking that out over on the Legendary Upside YouTube channel. It's going to be streaming tomorrow. I'm going to jump on Davis's channel, then I'm going to do a draft over on my channel too. And I got the running backs piece coming up. Michael Dubner's going to have a piece on rookie CLV, predicting where the running backs he thinks will be going after the draft and the way he's playing it now. I also have been working on this piece, kind of a little bit off the normal stuff, but kind of digging into the biometrics of the human running and how that affects fantasy. So would recommend
duck-footedness versus
yeah.
We have Daniel write like 3,000 words about the duck-footed phenomenon.
Duck-footed runners versus ADP is what I want to see.
Yeah. Someone should run some regression analysis.
It would just be like a list of giant, like everyone would just be like normal footed, like duck footed.
2 duck-footed people in the whole database.
The whole database of people.
Oh, goodness.
You know who that running style reminds me of? Jay Ajayi. He always had like the knees are kind of out wide. Was Jay Ajayi duck-footed?
That's a good question. He was bone on bone with his knee, so maybe that was
he had some weird knee stuff.
Yeah, it was weird. Yeah, pigeon footed or pigeon toed apparently is bullish. That's what, at least that's like the scouting legend. But again, how many of these guys are actually pigeon toed? And then like I think LeBron's pigeon toed, so it's like how much weight is that doing? Because I'm pretty sure LeBron would be LeBron even if his feet didn't slightly point inwards. But
I don't know, man. Sounds like there's correlation there. Yeah, so we'll book some guests for the coming weeks, get some more kind of dynasty focused shows. If you missed it last week, we had a very fun mock draft with
he's duck-footed? Apparently LeBron's duck-footed.
Oh God. I gotta end this show before more alarming duck-footed facts come out here. Incredible. Harold Fannin Jr. is
never. I take it all back. LeBron's
James
duck-footed, then you want to be
of the NFL. That's what we just learned.
Yes.
That's what we just
learned. The LeBron James. Love it.
Let's go.
Duck.
Check out ADP chasing from earlier this week. If you guys missed it, no Sanderson. He's off traveling, but good show with the fellas. And for me tomorrow night, I'm going to have Thor Nystrom from Fantasy Life on After Dark. So if you guys want some more NFL draft talk, he is deep in the weeds with all the prospects and mock drafts. So that'll be a fun conversation if you guys are members over on my channel. Thanks again to Gretch for swinging by. As the chat has said, we miss him around here greatly and excited to hear that he will be back for the draft stream, which mark your calendars 3 weeks from today. We'll get our should I say ducks in a row for that show here soon enough. Have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll see you guys next time on Ship Chasing.